Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey Vetrehabbers, in this episode, Anae and I dive into how social media can be so much more than just a place to post. It's a powerful collaborative tool for veterinary rehab professionals. We chat about the how and when of sharing content ethically and legally, and why giving credit to the original creator is so important. So whether you know who made the content or not, we walk through the best practices so you can feel confident sharing while respecting others' work. We also talk about how sharing other people's content is actually a brilliant way to collaborate, connect with other professionals, and support industry-wide education. Now, if you have some spare time in your hands and you're thinking what to do, we've got three free webinars available to you. We have an evidence-based approach to cranial cruciate ligament rupture rehabilitation with Lilani Alvarez, hydrotherapy for patella luxation with Ansi van der Walt, and the horse hoof connection with Yogi Shah. All you need to do is head over to onlinepethealth.com/free. A quick word from our sponsors before we dive into today's topic. At Paw Prosper, we believe true pet well-being demands a three-pronged approach: prevention, support, and rehabilitation. Our brands are trusted by veterinarians, universities, and rehab facilities alike. Whether you're looking to train, rehabilitate, or help your patients age gracefully, our brands Walkie Pets, Help 'em Up, Respond Animal Therapeutics, Fit Paws, Muffins Halo, Sleepy Pod, and Canine Cots offer effective, innovative, and proven solutions. You can sign up today to receive a one-time special gift for all our podcast listeners with your next order. You just got to head over to the special link, pawprosper.com/OPH. As we wrap up the year, we want to wish all our Vetrehabbers a safe, joyful, and peaceful festive season. Take care of yourselves, enjoy some well-deserved rest, and we'll see you in 2026, ready to take on another amazing year together. Let's head over to my chat with Anae. Hey Anae, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi Meg, it's cool to be here with you.
I love doing these podcasts with you, and we always say we need to do more. But then the year just runs away with us, and we always have like two or one scheduled at the end of the year, and I just can't believe it's like the end of the year already, and we're just about at Christmas.
Yeah, it's crazy. Christmas is tomorrow, right? That's
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna chat about a topic, and I know just before we went online, you were like, "Is this a Christmassy topic at all?" So it's definitely not a Christmassy topic, but we do think it's an important topic, and it's about sharing content and being inspired by content on social media, and how you put that out on your social media or out there or using content. It's about copyright. It's a whole lot of things which I think that we as Vetrehabbers don't really know much about because it's not really in our wheelhouse at all. And so we thought it'll be a good idea to just go over this, just to make sure that you guys are all protected. And it was inspired actually by something that actually happened with our page. And I'm going to let Anae explain what actually happened. And, you know, we obviously at Onlinepethealth had a huge conversation about this. And that's why we're here today, to actually share the story with you, and then actually just to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes.
I love that. I think it's so important to take accountability and to learn from the things we do. So much of what we do on social media is actually an experiment and a trial, and something we're dipping our toes into. So a while ago, I saw this quote coming up on social media. So every time I went onto Facebook, I would see this quote circulating, and every time I saw it, it resonated with me. I loved it. I was like, that is so cool. So I'd obviously liked the post, but I hadn't shared it. And it was just one of those on Facebook with the short form text and then the Facebook background, right? So just that text with the pretty background that Facebook gives you. And after a couple of days of seeing this on my feed, I was actually inspired. I was looking for things to create that week on social media. Um, I loved the quote, so I created a little sketch of myself and my horse, and then I copied the text from that quote and put it in quotation marks as the description with the person who had written it tagged as the author or as the source, right? So like you would quotation marks and then the person's name, and they were tagged into that post, so that credit would go to them. And pretty quickly, that creator or that person came back to us and said, hey, actually, she didn't come back to us. She just commented in the comments and said, this is not okay. You've stolen my content. This is copyrighted, etc., etc. And my initial feeling was, well, no, it isn't. And we're giving you, exposure to a wider community. I've created an original drawing to go with it. How can just your text, a short sentence, be copyrighted? That doesn't make any sense. But of course, we looked into it further, and because she was unhappy, we changed that and we removed her quote from it so that it wasn't part of our post. Because it is important to, whether you're in the wrong or right, we want to honor other people's feelings and perspectives, and we're definitely not here to cause offense in other, with other people on social media. We're not here to pick a fight. So we changed our post and adapted it, and then did more research. And yes, we were in the wrong, because when you create even short text, a sentence or a short quote, if it's creative or it's inspirational, and if that comes from you, it is actually copyrighted. So we were under this false idea that when things are on social media, whether that's text or images, they're actually within the public domain and not protected by copyright. And that isn't true. So I'm really glad that we went through that process, because it's important to realize how to work on social media. This space is so gray, because if we think about content that goes viral or that is just highly shared, very often you don't know who that original creator was. And so it feels like what social media or what Facebook and Instagram are wanting you to do is to recreate content in a way that allows it to go viral. So if we think of Reels and TikTok and reshares and retweets and what is remixes, that's exactly what they're wanting you to do, right? So I wanted to go deeper into that, because how does this work? Where is the line? How do we respect people's creativity and copyright, essentially, while still participating in what social media is made for, which is creating things that are viral and uplifting your community and connecting with each other. And I think it's an interesting space to go into.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, we are obviously in the education space, but as vet rehabbers, so are you guys. Like, you guys are posting content for educational purposes. And I think, for me, if I think about it, sharing things like that, because we're trying to educate pet owners, sort of seems like it's more okay to do that because we're educating, It's not like, you know, it's not like we're actually taking that content and trying to pretend it's ours. We're just trying to share the information. And, I think there's such a fine line between being inspired by content and copying it. So let's dive into that a little bit more.
Yes. Okay. So that's quite a fun space. If we go back to the example or the story that I just told about the quote that was shared that I then copied and added to an original image that I created. Okay. So I created an original image that was mine. That's fine. But the moment that I copied the text, that was not the right way to do it. All right. But what I didn't want to do is share is share her post because I didn't like the background that she had on the text. That didn't feel aligned to me. I loved the quote, but not the background. So what I could have done is to take that inspiration further and to rewrite the not to rewrite the quote, but to share what it meant to me, right? So to create my own story around what that quote inspired. So instead of saying, having the quote by this person, I could have said, I was inspired by this person and what they said about this movement, and then tell my own story. And at the end, that is what I did. I removed the quote from the post and I wrote my own story in that description, instead of using her direct quote. And that would be the right way to do that. So to look at what the thing is that you're wanting to share or replicate or recreate, and then to recreate it in a way that's original to you. So be inspired to add more value, to add more information, to add another layer, or to deepen the information. And it's always good to acknowledge that inspiration, to tag that person in, or to tell your audience that you were inspired by this person. And why is that good? I think as professionals, that's good because it helps us to build up the community and to build up each other, to feature each other and to raise each other up. And that is one of our biggest goals, is to really just, as Online Pet Health, we're always wanting to raise up the professionals in our community. So that is important. Do you have to do that when you're creating a post? No. If it is original to you, but it's inspired by someone or something, good to acknowledge it, but you don't have to, right? So that is what, as long as it's original, then you don't have to acknowledge that inspiration, although I do recommend it. It's good. Does that answer that question, Meg? There's so
Yeah.
much actually to kind of go into there, because if we're thinking about that inspiration versus copying, how does that fit into trends? This is a question that's been bothering me, because we're wanting to participate in trends and in viral content when and where we can on social media, because the algorithm likes it, and we're always fighting with the algorithm. So I'm always trying to figure out, how can I participate in a trend and then while ensuring that that's relevant to us. But if we're thinking about this copyright, like, what does that mean? Because aren't you just copying what someone else is doing or using someone else's content, and then isn't that copyrighted? And that fits in with that inspiration again. So if you are using them as inspiration and then recreating it as your own, you can use audio, so using that audio to back up, but you're going to use your own script. And I know, like, we've been seeing a lot of that, right? There will be some random audio, a story that's being told, and then the person who creates the reel will be telling their own story. They'll be using their own script with text on the screen, for example, and that's quite a fun one. And so in that way, you can use a trending audio or a trending format and create it as your own. So recreate it with your own script for your own niche, for your own community. And even in that case, it's good to try and credit the original creator if you can. But so often with those, we have no idea where it came from. We're just seeing it on our feeds and then getting inspired by it. So that is tricky.
Yeah, I think that 100% answers it. I mean, and I loved what you said about the collaboration over competition. Like, we're actually here to uplift one another. And so I actually think, if you've ever been inspired by somebody, like, always credit them. That's how I feel. Just credit the people, I mean, it makes them feel good. It connects you with them and you collaborate. But if there is any text or anything that they've said, never copy it, never copy and paste it, only push the share button. And then I think, with regards to the inspired, like, if something's inspired you, I think this one sentence literally should answer everything for you. If your content wouldn't exist without the original creator's work, credit them.
Mm.
If you look at that content and you think, well, I wouldn't have created that because without that person or without that original creator, then credit them.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about crediting and how to do that properly. Because
Yeah.
also
Yes.
that's not always so simple, okay? So crediting should not just be hiding the creator's name at the bottom of your description. And I think a lot of people do, I do that very often, is to just image credited to X, Y, and Z. We always have permission to use that image, but I always have it at the bottom, right? It's also not using vague language like credit to the creator. You want to actually credit a specific person. If you don't know who it is, right, like in a viral thing, you can say, original creator is unknown. Please message me to credit. And then someone might send you a message and then you can edit that and add a credit in. I want to say that you need to credit on the image or on the video. You need to have created by X, Y, and Z. And you need to have that in the description, and you should have them tagged. And if you can add them as a collaborator, that would be great. But yes, that would be, if you're creating a source like a textbook or a study, you need to make sure that you have enough information in there so that people can find it, so that your colleagues can find it. Full title, if you can include a link, do it, but you don't have to. You want to have as much information in there that makes it findable. If you're crediting a book, title, author, make sure it's all in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that to be safe, I would actually mention the person that inspired you in the text. So I think, if you tag somebody into something, um, things can get untagged quite easily on Facebook. So
Mhm.
sometimes you'll something will happen, and actually you can push a button, and like on Facebook, I've had before, by mistake, something's happened, and then there was like a whole lot of things people had tagged me in, and I'd actually said I want to be untagged out of them by mistake. So all of those kind of things can happen. So I actually think it's good practice to actually mention the person, so, or the page, like in reading a post on this person's page, and then tag them afterwards, just to be really, really sure that you've actually credited that person, that the tag doesn't get removed.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So let's move on to chatting about images on social media and how we use those. So it's pretty much the same as any text. Someone's got any images on their pages, you can share them, push the share button from their page if it allows you to, but you cannot screenshot an image and you cannot download a video or image, even if you're able to on the platform, because some platforms will actually allow you, and then use it without getting their explicit permission. And I think this is one of the problems with social media, is that when we have this idea, oh, I'm going to create this post about hip dysplasia, we are like, oh, that's an awesome image. And then you think, let me ask this person permission. And then you send them the message and they don't get back to you. And then you're like, oh, and I think that's really where the problem comes, is that asking the permission. But we do need to. You have to either Facebook message them if you have access to their website, their email, WhatsApp, or whatever, but you do need to get permission. So that's the one thing about the images. And then I think while we're talking about that, we should probably chat about just using images on social media and looking at, as vet rehabbers, using images of our patients and our clients and getting permission from them. Do you want to dive a bit more into that?
I think okay, so you always have to have permission to use an image of a dog, of someone's dog or horse, or of themselves, right? And for a lot of us, we'll have that tick box on our intake forms that says you can use photos of this patient on social media. That can be difficult to track, because are you checking that intake form when you're creating your social media strategy? That's something we need to be very careful about. So there needs to be like a really clear mark on that patient file or on that patient's information to make sure that if they have not given permission, that you're not going to accidentally use anything from them on social media. I think if we are regularly filming or taking photos in clinical practice. So it's normal practice for you to be taking photos and videos of your patients during sessions. You're going to end up with a whole library on your phone or on your practice device that has content you can use, that has visual videos and images that you can use. So I think there is a place where if you're using a photo or a video of a patient, you're sharing educational content or something funny, anything really that's not specific to that patient. You're using it as a visual hook or a background, but it's not specific to that patient. Then having that permission on the client intake form, I think is good or is fine or is enough. If you're going to be doing more than that, I think it's important to get specific permission from the client. So for example, if you're wanting to tell the client's story or tell the patient's story or share specific information about what you are doing with this patient in the session and why, I think it's worth getting additional permission. And that may just be reaching out to the client and saying, hey, this is what I would like to do. Are you okay with that? Can I tag you? Can I include you in that post? A lot of owners are not on social media, but a lot are. Some dogs have their own social media account. Some horses have their own social media account. It's really good for us to be aware of that. If they have creator accounts, if our patients have creator accounts, we should be taking advantage of that, I want to say. We should be collaborating with those clients in a more creative way. If you're going to do creative, interesting things, do it with those clients because they most likely want that. Okay, that's going to add value to their experience. So I think that's really good. So I think from a professional standpoint, we should try and just add that extra layer of responsibility that when we're doing something interesting or unique, or we want to participate in a trend with a particular client and patient, we get their express permission to do that. And that is tricky. That is tough. Because it does take extra work. I think though it's worth the extra work because if you put all the effort into creating something and then your client comes back and they say they don't like that or they would rather not you have that out into the world because they saw it on social media and they weren't expecting it. That friction and that discontent isn't fun to deal with. So I think it's worth when you're doing something interesting, get express permission to do that from the client. Get them involved in the process. I've definitely found that helpful for us. When I want to, I never remix reels without actually reaching out to the creator first. So I'll get in touch with the person. I'll say, this is the reel I want to remix. This is what I want to do. Are you happy with that? They'll say yes or no. And then I go ahead and create it. It's very frustrating when you put in all the work to do something that you think is going to be great. And then the person whose dog or horse you used doesn't like it. That's not fun. So I think we should add that extra layer of permission.
Yeah, and I think it also goes to educational content with regards to lectures. So if you're lecturing or lecturing professionals on a specific topic, remember that any of the images in those lectures have to also have permission from the clients. And I think a great way to ask the permission is actually when you're recording it, you know. So as you're recording or taking the picture, say to the client right then and there, your dog is doing so well, or I just can't believe how your horse has improved. Would you mind if I use this content to educate or on social media and get their permission right then and there? And then at the end of the day, you can download that into a folder that says permission received. And then you can have another folder where you haven't got permission. So then you know what content like on your device or content that you videoed actually has permission and what doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's another, as I was kind of researching for this topic, I came across this term performative professionalism, which I thought was very interesting. And basically, that is referring to creating content that looks good but sacrifices accuracy or patient safety for engagement. And I think this is a trap that we can fall into on social media. Especially when we start experimenting, when we start to say, I want to build my social media account, then what you want to do is you want to be engaging, you want to be creating content that's engaging, highly shareable, controversial, humorous, and all of those things can create a balance or a scale that you need to figure out where you stand or how to stand on that. So creating something for the sake of engagement is not going to be good in the long run, and it can impact patient welfare or safety because you might have to compromise to be able to participate in a trend. And that can simply come from not having enough information or putting information in that could be misinterpreted to get that engagement. And so I think that's something to think about. I must say, I don't think I've come across a lot of Vetrehabbers that have done that, but I'm so familiar and aware of that feeling of, trying to be humorous at the
Mm.
expense of patient welfare or, client beliefs, for example. You might want to make a joke about compliance, right? It's like you've given this client 3 exercises and they've done none of them. And you don't have to be specific to one client, but that can be hurtful or offensive potentially. So how you put that across is important, and I think that's something we need to think about. And I like to. I think there are a few questions we can ask ourselves because it's not always obvious when you're creating something or you're inspired. It's not going to be obvious to you initially whether or not you're towing that line. So you can ask yourself, would I be comfortable defending this post in a room full of my colleagues or my mentors or Vetrehabbers that I look up to? Can you do that? Can the information that you're sharing be misinterpreted or misunderstood? That really makes us question whether we're sharing something that is complete or whether we're sharing something that's going to potentially create misunderstanding. If an owner reads that has not got any knowledge or education or understanding about the thing you're speaking of, are they going to misunderstand what you're saying? And if it is misunderstood, can patient welfare be at risk? Might they engage in exercises or activities that would be dangerous for that condition or contraindicated for that condition because you haven't given enough context? So if we just say, for example, that cage rest is bad and they shouldn't be rested post-operatively, we need to be engaging in early mobilization and early exercise. Sure, that's true, but it's also patient specific and that can be misinterpreted so easily. So I think that's a tricky one that we need to look at, but we need to make sure that we're not going to be compromising patient welfare with anything that we're doing. This is a frustration that I've heard a lot from people within that do like a lot of canine exercise, is that it's interesting to see the advanced exercises, but advanced exercises are not appropriate for all patients. And so how do we make sure that someone is not going to do this or try and copy you with their own dog and then do harm? So I think that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, and you touched on that sort of humorous aspect of social media, and social media has this huge, like, entertainment. I think they call it edutainment, part of it. And I do see it a lot in the veterinary space, and I cringe sometimes. There is a lot of sort of humor at the client's expense. And I think that's something we definitely want to avoid. So I think it was just in that space where you're trying to be funny and you're trying to entertain people, like you said, just is this something that I could, defend this post amongst my colleagues or even your clients for that matter. So just yeah, there's a line which you don't want to cross, and you can be funny, but not funny at the expense of our patients and our clients, because some things that I think we might find funny might be offensive towards our clients and upsetting. So yeah, just be careful of that line.
Yeah. So there are actually some guides on edutainment. You want to make sure that you teach something true, that you avoid fear mongering, avoid
Mm.
shaming owners or colleagues. That one's, with the remix thing and people like to comment on what other people are doing, that's so dangerous, right? And if we go back to that space where you might see someone doing canine exercises and you're seeing lots of red flags, for example, are you gonna remix that and then, add that comment where you're saying this is not how it should be done, etc., etc.? That's not a nice thing to do. Right? So I wouldn't recommend doing things like that. Avoid sensationalizing pain or pathology. Your content can be light and humorous and aesthetic, but it should never be misleading. I think telling stories is so powerful. So find ways to tell stories ethically. Keep your clients anonymous unless they are content creators on social media and their dogs have accounts and their horses have accounts, then tell the stories with them. Do it with them. Don't dramatize patient cases. And remember, this is tricky because I think it's really easy. Like for me, I hear all these things and I say, well, how do I do that? And then I just say, well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't be creating entertaining or funny content. I should just be focusing on the serious stuff that I can do well. But fun helps knowledge to stick. And we can lead with both integrity and creativity. We just need to let that creativity out in the appropriate way. So it is worth pursuing. It is worth experimenting with and playing with, because it does help the information to stick.
Thanks for all those tips. Yeah, this has been a great topic. And for me, I think it's important that we all know where our boundaries are, what we should and shouldn't be doing, what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, and just to respect all the other creators out there. So yeah, I'm just going to be tagging and crediting away from now on, even if it's just inspired. And as I don't often, I actually can't remember ever copying, but I'm always inspired by other people's content. And from now on, that's it. Every single time I had that inspiration and I asked that question, if your content wouldn't exist without the original creator's work, credit them. I'm going to be doing that. So just as a recap, do you want to go over a recap of everything we've discussed today?
Oh, I think it's so important to collaborate. It just on social media, we should be working together. We should be like remember that we're working against the algorithm all the time, right? So you want to be finding ways to reach a broader audience and to uplift others. And so we really should have this viewpoint when we're on social media and when we're creating content on social media that the more people you can work with within your industry, the better that's going to do for your account. So obviously, depending on what the purpose is of your account, what you're trying to achieve with your social media pages. But I think it's so important to collaborate, to work with other creators, to work with your clients. Like I said, I think it's such a great opportunity if you do have clients that are social media creators to work with them, to create things with them. So remembering that social media gives us visibility, influence, and reach, but it also gives us responsibility. And as professionals, we need to choose to operate above just the minimum of what the platforms require, right? So the platform rules that allow us to share and remix and recreate, just hold yourself to a higher standard than that. and make sure that you're also upholding animal welfare, community integrity, and the integrity of the professionals that you want to be showcasing on social media, or collaborating with. And then if you're ever in any doubt, credit, collaborate, and communicate with kindness. Ask permission. I think that is really the big thing that comes across for me, is to just, if there's any doubts, ask permission and work together.
I think one thing we can also just cover is that if you're in a situation where somebody has copied something that you've written, also handle that professionally. The right thing to do is just to send them a direct message and just say to them, I don't feel comfortable with you copying my content. Please remove it. But don't go and go comment on every single post and, badmouth the people. That's not a professional way to handle things. So we just, do it on a DM and do it the right way.
I think that's really important. How are you going to handle that conflict? Or that discomfort. I think that's so good, Meg. Yeah.
And be forgiving, because what we're sharing today, I mean, here we are in the online space on social media. We've got huge pages, and there's new stuff that we're learning and things that are changing all the time. So don't expect everyone to know all the rules and how to play the social media game. So be that person who just educates them. Say, hey, this is not how we do it, and I'd appreciate it if you remove it. Just do it with kindness.
Mm-hmm. And remember that you can do that. You don't need to sit there upset that someone's copying your stuff. Just speak to them and be open about it and share your boundaries. And then saying that, you can set boundaries when you are creating content. You can protect, to a degree, the things that you're putting out into the world. You can disable share if you don't want people to share it. You can disable remixes on Instagram. If you don't want people to be remixing and sharing it, then disable those things. Look into how that works, and then make sure that you have your settings in line with what you want to achieve. If you don't want people to be recreating or sharing, you can say that in the description. So if those things make you uncomfortable, or there's a specific reason you don't want that to happen, then be clear about it and put it out. Put it in the comments, put it in the description, wherever you want. But be clear about what your boundaries are, and then that also makes a difference. So clear communication. But saying that, why would you do that on social media? Why would you want to restrict people from sharing and being inspired by your content? I think that the space is created for that to happen, and it benefits you when it does. So take advantage of that. It's, for us, it's one of the measures of this was something great that we created. The more people want to share it, or are inspired by it, or want to create their own content that's similar, that is like a huge high for us if that happens. So I think that's, it should be for you too. But if it isn't, then make it clear.
Love it. Renee, thanks for the chat, and wishing everyone happy holidays and have a wonderful Christmas tomorrow. And we will see you in the new year. Can't believe it.
2026, here we come.
Cheers, Renee. Bye, everyone.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Paul Prosper. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out, paulprosper.com. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday, the 31st of October, 2026. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Online Pet Health members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com. And if you want access to our free membership, we update the webinars in this area every 3 months. You can sign up at onlinepethealth.com/free.